since the agenda, so Kristen, could you just could you tell us which of the bills on the agenda have appropriations approval at this point? Kristen?
I was muted. Sorry.
Okay.
Yep. House Bill 874, 976, and 1209.
Okay. All right. So we are going to take those three bills first. And since we do have the yes from appropriations, we'll consider if, we'll consider if we want to pass them. The other two bills on the list where the approval is still pending, we'll review, but won't take any action on. And we can always meet tomorrow if we get approvals or if things move. So we're going to start with 976, then go to 874, then 1209, then 607 and 840. Okay. Any questions before we jump in? Okay. All right. 976, we left in limbo yesterday. I think it's fair to say that there was a lot of subcommittee sentiment for the bill, but there was, at least among some members, a desire for the sponsor and MDE to connect, since apparently there hadn't been any recent communication. So I do want to thank MDE and also the state health department, and also Delegate Tarassa, who was able to be on the call. Unfortunately, I couldn't be, but who spoke with the sponsor, Delegate Henson, today. And we'll say there, and after I speak, Delegate Tarassa, since you were there, feel free to add any comments. There was a lot of good conversation. MDE and MDH proposed a task force or work group, I forget which, but which would come up with recommendations. And but after further conversation with the chair and also with the bill sponsor, I'm going to recommend that we stick with the amended bill as was before us yesterday. But before we get into conversation about that, Delegate Tarassa, thank you again for being on the call. Is there anything you want to add?
You're welcome. Thanks for allowing me to sit in on that. No, not really. I think that the folks that were on the call were very helpful in terms of their discussions, and I think they know all the people they need to work with to move this forward.
Okay.
But I do think they, as you said, prefer a task force.
Yeah.
But I agree with you on the bill.
Okay. And Kristen, in terms of, I know yesterday you sent out the updated, the reprint of 976 with the amendments. Any chance you could share that real fast?
Is it showing on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. We had some updates to the definition section. And then updates to the entities that the department must consult with in coming up with the standards.
Okay.
And then I think that was it for the amendments. So I don't know if.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions about the amendments? And again, appropriations has signed off on the fiscal note, so we're good to go on that.
Mr. Chairman, is a motion to approve the bill in order?
We would need to first approve the amendments.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I move we approve the amendments.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, the bill as amended.
Move the bill as amended.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion, questions about the amended bill? Okay. All those in favor of the bill as amended say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, bill passes as amended. Thank you. Okay, next we'll go to House Bill 874, which also has amendments. And we did today, as Kristen said, get the approval from appropriations. So Kristen, could you, Thank you. And if you could review the amendments.
So the bill is establishing a unit in the Office of Attorney General to investigate and prosecute criminal cases. So I'll just go over the amended bill. What the amendments do, it's updating the name of the unit to the Environmental and Natural Resources Crimes Unit. It updates the function and responsibilities of the unit. The bill as introduced had a number of responsibilities listed here on page 3 that are coming out of the bill. So the responsibilities broadly is to investigate and prosecute the state's criminal, environmental, and natural resource laws. And then there was language added to also allow for the purpose of furthering an ongoing criminal investigation under the bill to subpoena.
Okay, say that again. I'm sorry, with respect to a subpoena.
It gives the authority to an attorney general or a deputy or assistant attorney general for the purposes of furthering a criminal investigation under this bill. They would have the authority to
You can issue
subpoena.
subpoenas.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything on the last page?
Just a little more language relating to the subpoena portion.
Right. Okay. And so remind us in terms of the amendments. Initially, I think Delegate Stewart's bill had proposed a 5-person unit, and now it's is it 3?
I think that's so right now it's a full-time director. And then it includes staff, and the bill as introduced identified like specialized staff. And so this just broadly references the types of staff, but it doesn't, I don't think it says the number. I think the fiscal note was estimating the number of staff. So this is anticipated to reduce the number of staff in the unit.
Okay. All right. Okay, questions about the bill or the amendments? Delegate Terrassa?
Just are these, did the sponsor see these amendments and is he good with them?
They're sponsor amendments. They're from the
Oh.
sponsor.
Okay, then I'm ready to move forward if and
Okay.
when the chair is ready.
Any other questions? All right, well, Delegate Terrassa, you want to move the amendments?
Move the amendments.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The bill as amended.
Move approval.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of the bill as amended say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, bill passes as amended. Thank you. Next, we'll go to Delegate Lehman's bill, which also has had a number of amendments, got appropriations approval today. So Kristen, if you could update us as to where things stand on 1209.
Sure. So the bill, instead of requiring the department to publish a statewide flood risk assessment map and to establish a new model ordinance, it requires the department on or before July 1, 2025, and every 5 years thereafter to review and consider updates to the model floodplain ordinance.
And
so then-
Kristen, I'm sorry, I do have a question. I should know this, but this is a statewide ordinance, is that right?
Yes. Well, it's a
Okay.
model ordinance for, actually, I've
Right, it's different parts of the state, but it is representing all parts of the state. Delegate Terrassa?
So same question about this. Did you say these were sponsor amendments?
yes.
Thank you.
I mean, I guess I'm not I'm probably the best person to answer the question exactly what the floodplain ordinance looks like.
Is there someone from MDE Gabby or someone else who could answer that? No? Okay.
Sorry,
Or
my fault.
less.
All the button layouts are a little different, and I've been on all 4 platforms today. So the model floodplain ordinance, as it is now, focuses obviously with the FEMA flood program and sets out basic standards on building in a floodplain. Now, that's more narrow than what this bill is looking to do.
Okay, so I guess that section that's on the screen is what MDEs would do in updating every 5 years.
Yeah, there's a number of
floodplain
action
order.
listed. They would review maps from FEMA. They would work with interested experts and stakeholders. And they would work with experts and stakeholders to review and assess certain floodplain management practices for potential incorporation into the model floodplain ordinance. So then it lists the types of floodplain management practices on the next page, actually.
Okay, Duncan Morgan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. In reading this earlier in the fiscal note, it seems like we've taken a lot out of the bill. Does it still impose a local funding mandate on the local communities?
Kristen, do you know? Or
Not to the
less?
scale that it would have been, but I don't know. I don't know what that impact would be.
Less?
So-
I think if the ordinance is, I guess, if it results in an update, then potentially every 5 years there could be some sort of impact, but I'll defer to the Department of the Environment if they're on the call.
So the answer to that is, I think it's a little uncertain. As the bill is, it does not have a direct requirement on county governments to adopt the model floodplain ordinance. However, if as part of this update, the FEMA insurance is updated, the insurance program, you would have to also update the model ordinance at the local level, as you do now. That is existing law.
Right.
To maintain eligibility, but it doesn't impose anything beyond that.
So I'm sorry, Les, go ahead.
I'm good. Go ahead.
So the bottom line here is every time we know that the federal floodplain maps get adjusted, counties have to take proper action to model whatever the feds say, but this is not going to add another layer to that the locals would have to pick up. Am I correct?
So it would add another layer, but as I understand the bill, the locals aren't necessarily required to adopt. There's no
That's the part.
mandate in the bill for them to adopt.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Delegate Terraza.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, but maybe Delegate Morgan's questions are already answered, but I know that Matt Johnston worked on this amendment and he's on here. If we're able to ask him about it to answer that question, or is the question already answered?
Matt, is there anything you want to add?
No, on that one, I think that I agree with Les there, that the bill does not mandate anything new. What it does is it creates a process whereby we'll draft a new model ordinance once every 5 years, and it may take 15 years before there's actually a new floodplain map for a county that would have to adopt something similar to that model ordinance. So that's all I'll say there. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Matt. But if I could follow up on what you just said, why would it maybe be up to 15 years later?
Yeah, I think MDE can help us out with that one. But the maps can take a long time to create. And you don't update your maps and adopt a new ordinance until you have a new map in hand. And Les, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it can take like 10, 15 years to go for the county, for the state and the feds to go through all the counties to update their maps. Is that correct, Les?
That is correct. It can take that length of time.
Okay, so maybe I'm missing something here, but that the bill requires that the model ordinance be updated every 5 years.
Consideration.
What's that?
I don't, it's every 5 years, they have to review and consider updates. They don't have to.
Oh, consider updates.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Okay, so that factors into the fact that it might be 10 or 15 years before a local ordinance is updated. Is that right?
That's
I'm not
correct.
sure if that's the same thing as what Matt was explaining. I mean, I think that is one way that it could be delayed, but I wasn't.
Okay. Delegate Terraza, did you have another question?
Nope, sorry, forgot to lower my hand.
No problem, no problem. Anyone else have a question about the amendments where the bill is amended?
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
have a technical item to raise. Is it okay to ask the subcommittee? So the new Roman 6 down above like lines 22 on page 3, where it's talking about updates to the department's process to educate communities about flood risks.
That's what you're showing, right?
That's what I'm showing you. And so,
the screen, okay.
so that's drafted to an area which is requiring the department to to work with experts and stakeholders to review and assess certain floodplain management practices to potentially include into the model floodplain ordinance. And that language just doesn't fit into what you'd be including into an ordinance. And I think MDE pointed this out, that should just be its own action that needs to be taken when reviewing and updating or considering updates. Another action they should be doing is reviewing and considering updates to their department's process to educate communities. I just want to separate it out as separate from inclusion in the model ordinance. I mean, I personally think it's just a technical issue, but I didn't want to change anything or change anyone's intent.
Okay, Delegate Ruth?
Yeah, I understand what Kristen is saying, and I agree. And it does seem like it should be just a technical, and instead of being under that, ordinance thing, it should be a separate thing.
The lead-in language is all about the ordinance, and it's just not something that relates to a floodplain management practice.
Okay. So is there a technical fix that you could?
Yeah, I already have it marked to make it. I just didn't want to make it, without saying anything.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you said you.
I have it on my notes to make the update. I just didn't have anything incorporated into the amendments here today.
Okay, but that's again a technical fix, so we could conceivably adopt it as part of the amendments.
That's what I would suggest.
Okay. Is everyone okay with that? Okay.
As long as it doesn't change what it's doing, it just changes where it.
It just
goes.
changes it where it is.
Oh, yeah, that's.
I mean, it's still, that language is still going to be there, just going to be
Yeah, I'm
broken
fine
out
with
to
it.
its own action.
Thank
Separate
you.
from-
Yeah, that's fine. Cool. I didn't mean to interrupt you either.
Oh, that's
Sorry.
fine. No, I'm good.
Oh, me too.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Clearly there was, going into this, there was part of this that I wasn't 100% sure about. I mean, I feel more comfortable now, but does anyone else have any questions? Okay, does anyone want to move the amendments?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, and noted that this includes the technical fix we were just talking about. All right, all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
aye.
Opposed? Okay, the bill as amended.
Move the bill. Amended.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, bill passes as amended. Thank you. Okay, so the next two bills start with HB 607, Delegate Love's bill, then go to HB 840. And again, at this point, what we're going to do is just walk through them as they've been amended. So Kristen, could you start with HB 607? And obviously, Delegate Love, feel free to chime in.
Is 607 showing up on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. That was the quickest way I've ever done it, and I don't know how that happened. So, oh well. So this bill is undergoing a lot of changes. Let me get to the.
And Kristen, also, I mean, this reflects the cross-file as it passed out of the Senate. Is that right?
So it's still, I think it's past second reading. I don't think it's crossed over yet.
It's on third reader tonight.
It's on, okay. And
Okay.
it's all of the amendments that have been adopted by the Senate are in these amendments, but there are a couple tweaks as well that have been
Okay.
included in these amendments.
That's right. That Delegate Love that you've added. Is that right?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have a couple amendments that we're adding at the request of MDE and NIOP. And with these amendments and the understanding that we would put them in on the House side, they have withdrawn their opposition.
Okay.
So the amended bill is requiring MDE to review and update state specifications for sediment control plans every 5 years. And so the difference here is the date by which that review must take place is a year later than the Senate bill. So this bill, that would be December 1st, 2025.
Okay. And then there
And then there's
criteria that the department's supposed to take into account.
certain actions that
The
they would
update.
take when reviewing and updating the plans.
Yeah, hold on just 1 second. Delegate Tarasi, you've got a question?
Yeah, can you, as you go through, let us know which ones they requested, the last minute ones? Or is that hard? That's just too
I mean,
complicated.
No, they're not. I mean, I'll do my best. They weren't overly complicated. Certainly Delegate Love or the folks that worked on the bill with her, they can maybe follow after I finish. And if I miss something, they'll be able to point it out. There weren't a ton of differences. So the first one is the dates. The dates aren't the same.
So the date was what in the amendment, and then what is it now?
2024, the Senate adopted, and this amendment has 2025, December 1st,
Okay,
just by 1 year.
The request of MDE.
great. Okay.
So then there's, in reviewing and updating the specifications for the sediment control plans, the department must take certain actions, including consulting with stakeholders and experts. And it also has a reporting requirement.
Okay,
They
I'm sorry.
have to report
Yep.
before
I'm sorry.
finalizing.
Sorry, Kristen. Delegate Morgan, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Did I hear you say that you had incorporated NAOPS and MBIA's requests into the bill?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Kristen, sorry about that.
So the bill as introduced would have established an enhanced individual permitting scheme, and that language is all coming out of the bill. And instead, it would require construction activities in sensitive areas, or instead it requires on written requests to it requires the department on written request to extend the public notice and comment period on applications for specified permit applications to 60 days. So what it
Where are you reading from, Kristen?
so a summary that I jotted down, but I'm not sure I wrote it very clear. So instead of requiring the individual permit, the department is not authorized to issue a permit for certain projects until the requirements on the next page have been met. And these are for certain sensitive areas. And so this
Okay.
gives an extended public notice period on written request.
And the written request could be from someone who's, are there any criteria for who can make the
No,
request?
just during the public notice period for the actual general permit.
I see, okay,
So then anyone could, during that period of time, could request an extension.
okay.
An
Del
opportunity.
Terrasso, you have a question?
But do they have to have, that's for them to request an extension, not for a hearing.
It's for opportunity to comment
Um,
on the project.
but is this, so this was changed just in the end? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure, was it changed when?
Well, was this changed in response to MDE or NIOP, or what was this?
These are the Senate amendments.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and actually, did I skip? I don't know if I'll go back if I feel like I forgot something, but so that's for the extended opportunity to comment. And then-
So if I may, Mr. Chair, to answer Delegate Terrassa's comment.
Sure.
So these amendments, and Matt can correct me if I'm wrong, but these amendments were all part of discussions with MDE, NIOP, builders, et cetera.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Can you go back up, Kristen? I'm
Yep.
sorry. There's,
You want to just write the newsletter?
yeah, starting with, okay, the department shall properly, oh, this is with respect to a request for,
How they handle it, yeah.
um, um, oh, I see. So then Roman numeral 4 says notify the applicant if any updates to the plan are required. That's based on the comments that MDE may receive.
I think so, but
Okay. And then section C, this section does not apply to construction activity that does not result in the establishment of any permanent building and is solely intended to restore natural resources. Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes, sure.
Thank you. The bill as it came in did three main things. It said, in these sensitive areas, you have to get an individual permit. It said that to create pollution downstream was illegal, and it provided for penalties. I think I got all that right, Matt. Now what it does is it says that MDE needs to update its sediment specifications, sediment and erosion control, and then upon request in these sensitive areas, the public can ask for an extended public comment period. So that's how it was, and that's how it is.
Okay. Yeah, no, thanks for the sort of the overview as to how things started out and what they are now. Okay, any other, is that the end of the bill there, or there are other changes? Kristen?
I think the remaining might be the enforcement provisions that have come out. We're all out of the bill. And going back to the department, when it's reviewing and updating the specifications, I can show you where there is one difference between this bill and the Senate bill. And I think that's one from NIOP.
Okay,
Let me just skip back up there. So number 3, under 7.2.3, it would ensure that, so when they're reviewing and updating, this language ensures that any updates or revisions are not applied retroactively to projects with already approved sediment plans. So the other requirements
I see.
are the same as the Senate, but that was new language added.
Okay, that's number 3 there.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. And I'm sorry, Kristen, you were saying down at the bottom, it was just it was removal of enforcement provisions.
Mostly, there is a reporting requirement where my screen's freezing. Okay, where the language, so MDE would get back to the General Assembly on plans and resources needed for reviewing and updating the specifications by November 1st, 2023. So they'll be reporting back to the General Assembly. And the language here is a little bit different from the Senate, that the Senate just has the report on the department's plans. This adds and resources needed for reviewing and updating those specs.
Okay. All right. Any other questions about the amended bill? Or Delegate Love, anything else you want to add?
Nope, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Discussion. Okay. All right. So again, we're for today. We're not going to move the bill. Just wanted to discuss it. Doesn't mean that for this bill or the next bill that there can't be any action taken before crossover, but just for today. And we don't have appropriations approval. Okay, well let's move on to House Bill 840. Delegate Boyce's Climate, Labor, and Environmental Equity Act.
So this one is, well, let me bring up the. So this is what I brought up is the cross file. I don't think the Senate's taken any action, but this is the Senate. These are amendments that were just offered on the Senate side. So the bill is requiring MDE to conduct a climate and environmental equity evaluation of certain permit applications.
And Kristen, sorry to interrupt, but is Delegate Boyce offering these amendments as well?
Yes.
Okay.
They are from
She
Delegate Boyce.
proposes to conform it to the Senate bill. Okay.
So, yeah, so as amended by this amendment.
Right.
She has 2 sets of amendments. This one is more substantive. So that's why I'm showing this one.
Okay.
And so there were labor and employment considerations language in the bill. And so what this bill does, it's just striking references to labor, and the Department of Labor's responsibilities are also taken out of the bill. Let's see if I can find it faster on my reprint. So those references requiring the Department of Labor to report on its agency decisions. And this is a report relating to labor, employment, and wages.
Okay, so all that is out.
All the, yeah, so that's, I mean, so the bill is just really with the Department of the Environment and their responsibilities. Where if the department determines that issuing an approval for a permit would impact an underserved community or an overburdened community, the department must conduct a climate and environmental equity evaluation of the permit. And then that evaluation would have to include certain analyses.
Mhm. Okay, so there's the items that you're scroll through, items 1 through 8, are the factors that have to be considered in the event that maybe could go back up. Let's see, that if after reviewing or conducting EJ score review, the department determines that issuing approval for a permit may impact an underserved community or overburdened community. At that point, then, does that evaluation, which would include an analysis of those 8 factors. Delegate Ruth, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wondered why we're taking labor out of this. That seems really important.
Is there anyone on the call? And by the way, Caitlin Schmidt pointed out that something I said was technically incorrect. The evaluation may include an analysis of those 8 factors. It's not required. But does anyone who's on the call able to answer Delegate Ruth's question? If there's anyone who can, maybe just speak up.
Hey there, yeah, I can answer the question.
Okay.
So the heart of the bill, of course, is the environmental justice and MDE provisions. We did receive some pushback from sort of this part of the bill. And in terms of the Maryland Department of the Environment, they actually requested these amendments at the hearing, if you'll remember. So those were taken out of the bill, but we have gotten some reassurances from the administration that this type of reporting is something that can be done at the gubernatorial level or required at the gubernatorial level.
Okay, thank you. Delegate Ruth, are you good, or anything else that you want to ask?
Well, I just am not completely comfortable with taking it out, and I certainly believe that this administration is going to pay attention to those things, but they're only, I mean, we want to make sure that in the long term going forward as well, anyway, I mean, I just think I think it's important that we are making sure that we pay people fairly and have good labor practices and all of these things.
Okay. No, I mean, good points. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Caitlin, I'm sorry, but I don't think you answered Delegate Ruth's question. The question was, and I have the question too, why were the labor portions of this taken out? I still don't understand why that was the case. I mean, all these other factors are in there. I don't understand. Maybe I didn't interpret your answer correctly, but could you again?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry if I wasn't incredibly clear in my answer. So the portion of the bill that was removed was a separate annual reporting portion of the bill that applied to 11 state agencies. And so this part of the bill still applies to those 11 state agencies. We were simply trying to amend the bill to also include the Department of Labor. And then we created simply a list of additional factors that would have to be reported on. We never got buy-in from the Department of Labor, and simply because it's just an annual report, we didn't think sort of this would be a substantive loss for the bill. So again, we got some pushback internally from the Maryland Department of Labor, and that's essentially sort of how things were left.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, Delegate Terraza.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a lot of problem with taking labor out of this. I think a lot of times when we work on environmental stuff, we leave labor out, and I think it's such an important piece of the puzzle, and I'm not sure why. I think it sends a bad message to take it out of this, and would love to see us keep it in there.
Well, how about this, Delegate Terraza and also Delegates Foley and Ruth? Again, we're not going to take any action on the bill tonight. Feel free to reach out to the bill sponsor, Delegate Boyce, and maybe try to get some clarification, for additional clarification from her, to see if it addresses your concerns, or you want to work with her to revise the changes. But I suggest that you do that. I think you make good points. But at this point, I think, probably makes most sense to talk with the bill sponsor. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate Morgan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know MBIA had some questions. Do you know if those were incorporated in that Senate version?
They have not, no.
No, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Hold on a second, Bob.
Okay.
Just a second. Let me, Todd, Delegate Morgan, would you like MBIA to respond?
Yeah, please.
For
Thank you.
folks who are not subcommittee members, we sort of want someone to make an official request to an advocate to speak. So, okay, go ahead, Bob.
Appreciate it. Just want to say that the Senate bill hasn't moved. There was a very robust discussion within the Senate committee when the bill was heard, and I just think that appreciate to have the opportunity to if you're not going to vote it tonight, I just wanted to clarify that these amendments do not address our concerns that we raised with the bill. I'd be happy to discuss them further with the individual members of the subcommittee.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Delegate Morgan, was there anything else you wanted to ask? Okay. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So now, I thought the Senate bill had moved. That's why we were looking at the Senate bill. So, I guess maybe this is also a question for the sponsor. If we're conforming to a Senate bill that isn't going to pass, I don't know what the point of that is. So anyway, I'm just a little confused about why we're deferring to the Senate when the Senate bill didn't pass and sounds like it might be in trouble.
Okay. Again, I guess I'd suggest reaching out to the sponsor, as to her thoughts behind proposing that HB 840 be conformed to the Senate bill as it's been amended, but as you know, it has not moved yet. Other questions? Okay, well then, I think we're done. See, Kristen, is that all the bills on our agenda?
I mean, there was one additional amendment, but it really was just
okay.
technical. I mean, I don't think it's going to change the discussion, but just to mention, there was another amendment. It just related to the fees and where the fees are deposited, and named 3 existing funds where that money would go. So if this bill comes back in, maybe we'd have time to merge the sponsors' amendments.
Okay. All right.
I wouldn't really call it a substantive change.
All right. Any last comments for the good of the order before we go? And again, we may very well meet again.
Can I say something? I just want to say that I'm so grateful that we did this after session, because we were able to have a real conversation, a robust, I should say, that we always have real conversations, but I wanted to thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I agree.
Yeah. And Delegate Terraza, thank you again for being on the call about Delegate Henson's bill. Appreciate that. Okay, well, good. Well, we haven't gone too far past 6 o'clock, so not too bad. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.